Hello and welcome. I'm Ashwin Ahmed, and today we are going to be discussing the most dramatic turn of events. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has phoned Prime Minister Narendra Modi to say that he will not be the chief guest at the Republic Day parade. Well, it was on the anvil if we think about it. Boris Johnson had introduced a national lockdown. There was the mutant variant of the coronavirus, and for a start, the strains of the coronavirus were actually coming in India. There are reported 38 cases from the UK, where UK passengers had come into India, and the virus was spreading in India. Now, why is that such a problem? A chief guest of the Republic Day is supposed to be without controversy. And the rising spike in infections, both in the UK and especially now in India as well, is causing a problem both for India and the United Kingdom. Boris has a massive problem to deal with in the UK, introducing the national lockdown. Britain, I think, is the sixth largest in terms of mortality rates, in terms of COVID deaths, and within India, this mutant coronavirus and rising cases, which has come from the UK itself, that won't do India any favors either. So Boris's visit to India at this time does not make political sense. The second thing we need to figure out is it's the farmers' crisis. This has been going on for some time. First of all, MPs such as Subramanian Swamy in India, they've talked about a scaled down Republic Day parade. They've talked about the fact that the British Prime Minister shouldn't come to India at this point. On the UK side, farmers MPs from the United Kingdom have very strongly raised the issue of what they see as human rights abuses regarding the farmers issue. Was that going to be a factor? Yes, perhaps it was. The British Prime Minister would have been asked some embarrassing questions. There's no doubt about it. They would have been asked about the huge protests that took place outside the Indian High Commission. There were talks about Sikhs for justice, Khalistani separatists, as well as Kashmiri separatists as well. So the British Prime Minister would definitely have been asked some embarrassing questions. Boris tried to wriggle his way about it. When he was asked a question on this in the House of Commons, he said this was an India-Pakistan problem, and he claimed he misheard the question. But there was no way that he would not have been asked this question. So definitely there was controversy coming, both for India and the UK. The third thing that we really need to bear in mind here is that Boris Johnson wanted to come. There is no doubt about it. He would have been the first prime minister in 27 years since John Major. Let's not forget that. And he is trying to make history. Let's talk about Brexit for a minute. John Major was the last British PM who came in 1993. Boris Johnson is talking about global Britain. That's his agenda. He's trying to push it after a deal he's done with the EU, but at the same time, he wants to show the world that Britain is open for business. And he needs to do that if he's going to ensure that his Brexit deal sails through. Because if the EU deal falls short, he has to convince his deeply entrenched cabinet, who have believed in Brexit, that the UK is a market for the world. So India was on the anvil. He's talked about it would be the fourth FTA. He's already signed with Japan and with 3 other nations. So for him to get an FTA with India would have been a huge thing. From our point of view, perhaps not so much, but it does give us an advantage. Why? Because unlike the EU, the UK now, without of the EU, they would have not been so this thing about environment protocols, which the EU asked for. So it would have been easier to do an FTA. Let's say that. There are defense protocols on the anvil. There's been talked about in UK-India Defence Logistics Pact. If that happens, then the India-UK relationship will get stronger. India is one of the largest investment partners, if not the largest, into the United Kingdom. So definitely there's a lot happening. The UK wants India, and for India, it's good politics as well. Now, let's come to the issue of human rights. India has to be wary of that. There will be caucuses. The 35 MPs are not going everywhere. We saw Debbie Abrahams. We saw her earlier in 2020. She tried to get into India, tried to visit Jammu and Kashmir. She claimed that she was not allowed in, which India denied. Then she went off straight to Pakistan, where she was greeted by Prime Minister Imran Khan. Then we had Jeremy Corbyn just before the elections tweeting that, about human rights violations in Kashmir. And then we've had British MPs, mainly of Indian origin, talking again about farmers' rights, Khalistan, etc. It is going to be tough going for India, in the sense that Britain and India have to realize that there are caucuses. Their voices will get louder, but they do not represent the British government. For Boris, his agenda of global Britain is the most important thing for him at the moment. But at the same time, India has to recognize that he has compulsions. He has to sew together an EU deal. That will be his priority. He has to sell that to his country and the cabinet as well. And at the same time, yes, but he does want India. What are the indicators? He promised to come again in 2021, and COP26. There's the G7 with Britain is hosting. India is going to be very much a part of that. So yes, there's a lot happening for the British-India relationship. There's even talks, perhaps, that there could be a closer defense ties, like I mentioned before. If that happens, one doesn't know. I mean, will we see a swing in the equilibrium between the India-Pakistan relationship vis-a-vis the UK? No, not as of now. The United Kingdom has maintained, as the Prime Minister said, it is a matter between India and Pakistan. But what is more possible is that within possible FTA, which Dominic Raab, when he came earlier, and if the British Prime Minister would have come, that push for the FTA, push for defense deals, will definitely make Britain much more sympathetic to India's concerns. And therefore, that could be very encouraging for India. The two countries can definitely work together. Britain is a member of the P5, and definitely it would help India a lot to have a much more sympathetic Britain on its side. It would help India a lot, especially if the UK were to sort of disengage itself from Pakistan. It's not going to happen overnight, but certainly the moves are there. India will definitely need that. They don't want separatists to flourish in the UK as they have been doing. So definitely a sympathetic Boris looking for an economic relationship, India looking for certain things from the UK. The two countries can definitely work together. So though the British Prime Minister is not coming, but at the same time, the India-UK relationship looks very promising. And there's a lot the two countries can do together. Thank you for listening. I'm Ashwin Amal. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.